every civil war ever, that's kind of the story, right? Like a certain group is like, we're going to secede, and the main group is like, no. I mean, it happened here in America. Not only with the American Revolution, but then the American Civil War was the South, we're going to secede. No. And then you go to war. So
sometimes Star Trek is pretty good with not hiding, but dressing up their story well enough to where it stands up on its own. And then someone can point out to us, like, oh, this is actually a metaphor for the blah, blah, blah. But watching this one, I'm like...
I wanted to address, this is a little bit, we've had some comments recently talking about
medical supplies, violent protests, terrorist attacks, demanding autonomy and self-determination.
Any other exposition here? Come on.
Waiter.
Oh! Shit! Oh!
There's a lot of bleeding, but it's not as bad as it looks.
Could be another bomb.
Interesting to see policemen.
There are physicians on this planet.
You are not here, I am.
It's her doctor's duty.
The goat.
You are endangering yourself and the away team.
They're not going anywhere. Data and Worf don't have to stay. Crusher out.
Yeah, Picard already knows.
Shall I transport them?
I don't want to be in the transporter room to greet her.
That's good, that's good.
Get out of the way!
Dude, this is so weird. Oh!
You don't understand.
Oh, fuck. And of course, Picard could have just beamed them away.
Could have.
Why would they want to take a Federation hostage? Their fight doesn't involve us.
It does now.
True. Worf with the good ideas, alright.
Every now and then.
You're a doctor?
Ooh. Who's the director? Oh,
I always
okay.
wondered what it would.
We've seen that name.
Yeah, I don't remember what episode it was.
This isn't the best way to meet new people, is it? If you need anything, ask for me. My name is Kirill Finn. They know me.
They know me. Well, I'd assume they know you.
It's more than likely they will take good care of her if they want to use her as a bargaining chip.
Bargaining chip?
I'm glad they're bringing Wesley in.
You don't know what a bargaining chip is, Wesley?
Frankly, Wesley, I don't care.
Perhaps if we found ourselves in possession of some of that advanced Federation weaponry of yours, it would shift the balance of power back to our favor.
No.
Of course, you know that is out of the question.
Yep.
You hungry? You want something to eat?
Beverly, listen. Do not get Stockholm Syndrome. Whatever you do.
All we did was bring them.
Medical supplies.
People were hurt.
I know. I hurt them. You finished eating. Get up.
Oh.
I have a son.
You'll be with him again, Doctor. I see no reason to kill you.
Okay, that's kind of a weird thing to say before commercial
Yeah,
break.
it's not a very intense thing. Like,
Yeah.
like if you ever want to see him again, you better like, oh, you'll see him again. What?
Oh, because she's fine.
I've anticipated your needs.
These are Federation supplies. The ones we had delivered to the medical dispensary.
Oh.
I was about to say, this guy can't be that dumb. Picard, I want to beam up.
A terrorist bomb destroyed a shuttle bus, 60 school children. That day I vowed that I would put an end to terrorism in this city.
Damn, dude.
Dimensional shifting? You can't do that with humanoid tissue.
A dead martyr's worth 10 posturing leaders.
True. Crazy. So they basically have this technology that shifts them through dimensions, but it kills them also slowly.
So they're able to survive being killed or captured, but it's killing them.
It sounds as though they may require the services of a doctor.
Picard walks away. What do you think he meant by that?
Yeah, Data. Yeah, I'd agree. Why'd you say that?
Yeah. Anyway.
Next scene. Yeah, what's up with this fucking guy? Was he arrested?
Well, it's interesting because it's like, I thought the gray in the hair was supposed to be for like one side, but also some of the policemen have it. So I don't know if it's just the whole species.
Are you gonna tell me that little boy's a threat?
That shuttle bus I told you about, the bomb was set by a teenager. In a world where children blow up children, everyone's a threat.
Brutal, man. Brutal.
You should be drawing, not killing people.
I can do both.
Can't you see the immorality of what you're doing?
How much innocent blood has been spilled for the cause of freedom in the history of your Federation? You frown on my immorality? I'm willing to die for my freedom, Doctor. I'm willing to kill for it, too.
He's good.
Checkmate, you win.
He's good.
Where have they taken her?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I've had enough of this.
Your people have terms. We're willing to listen.
Riker was like, let's cut to the chase here.
After one question, I'm done.
Well, who knows how many of these
Yeah,
interviews he sat through, yeah.
But it's funny just from our POV.
Yeah.
Terrorism is an effective way to promote political change. Numerous examples when it was successful. The Irish unification of 2024.
Is your son on the ship?
Yes.
I'm sorry, he's on the ship.
No.
For 70 years, we have shouted and no one has heard us. Destroy the Federation flagship, someone will listen.
Oh my God.
They are killing your son, not me.
I had a son, too. He was 13 when he died in detention.
Oh, don't cry, Beverly. Fuck. What the? You hear this?
Oh,
Oh no!
What? He just runs away.
Fuck this! I'm out of here.
Yeah. I love the sparks, you know, when people get shot. Like, obviously you're not going to have, you know, blood splatter, so the sparks are a nice substitute.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Geordi.
It's up to you, Jordy. Come on. Good job, Jordy.
Just go rip it off. There you go.
Get one of them now!
Oh. Nice job, Geordi. Oh no!
I don't think Picard's thrown a punch since like season 1.
Yeah, big goodbye, right? Oh, and that was like a wind-up too. He like stepped up to him.
I just asked if they would talk.
You have your answer, Riker.
Oh. What are you in for?
Should have beamed you up.
He wouldn't dare.
I am not here to hurt you. The Federation will blockade the planet. This will continue until the government of Rutia consents to talks mediated by a Federation council.
Did you get all that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was wearing AirPods. What did you say?
Request permission to join the rescue party, sir. Owe it to the captain.
Yeah.
He drew me. Maybe he is a nice guy.
Despite all the murdered people.
Yeah, just despite trying to blow up the Enterprise, kill my son. He drew me.
Beverly, it is our obligation to think of escape.
He's prepared to kill you.
An excellent reason to escape.
True.
There are some things I want to tell you in case we don't get out of this.
Oh, and then they get out of it. Screw you, show.
Make us wait.
They must have got picked up for that 4th season before this episode.
Yeah, all right.
Oh!
He's dead.
Oh.
She heard a whisper in her ear from Kirk from Star Trek V. Shoot him!
Now he's a martyr. It's an imperfect solution for an imperfect world.
Oh my God, the kid.
No more killing.
It never ends.
He could have killed you. He didn't. Maybe the end begins with one boy putting down his gun.
Take us out of orbit, Mr. Crusher. At your convenience.
Well, Alex, I gotta say, we finally got a Beverly Crusher focused episode, and it somehow was the most depressing episode thus far in the show. I didn't expect that.
Radical terrorists attack and kidnap Dr. Crusher.
This is a war for independence.
You are killing innocent people.
Strike without warning.
They are moving interdimensionally.
Kill without mercy.
Explosive charge on the main warp chamber.
And are declaring war on the Enterprise on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, very depressing, very hard to watch, especially with state of the world. It feels like it was very. Sometimes Star Trek is pretty good with not hiding, but dressing up their story well enough to where it stands up on its own, and then someone can point out to us like, "Oh, this is actually a metaphor for the blah blah blah." But watching this one, I'm like, I know exactly what this is about.
Yeah, and it's something that's been going on forever throughout the world's history in different iterations in different places. And we're not going to talk about any of that, but we are going to talk about how this show handled it with this episode. I want to first start off by saying this was directed by the returning Gabrielle Beaumont, who was the first woman to ever direct an episode, and she's returned for this one. Episode of Star Trek is what I meant, obviously.
First episode of anything ever.
Yeah, of anything ever. And then Melinda Snodgrass wrote this one, and I think the writing is the strength. We have the character of Finn, who is played by Richard Cox, and he's a pretty good guest. He's kind of like the leader of this rebellion terrorist group who's going against this planet, and he kidnaps Beverly Crusher at the beginning. So let's actually start there. We've gotten a little bit away from going through the episode in order, but I think with this episode it would actually benefit. So we start off Dr. Crusher, Data, and I think Worf down on this planet.
Great set.
Yes, excellent set. I actually wouldn't be, at first I thought like, oh, this is probably a real place, like on location, but then they blow it up. So I'm like, okay, so it's not. So great set. And there's a huge exposition dump in the captain's log, which this show has kind of gotten away from, but every once in a while, I feel like they have to give you the information and they have no other choice.
It was like it was like an opening crawl. It's like oh, what? Okay. Terrorist group, there's two sides. Okay, got it.
And like our dumbasses, just as soon as it's over, it took me a few seconds to even realize it was that deep of a exposition dump. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Did I still grasp it? Not really, but luckily the writing in this episode I think is strong enough that it's explained to us throughout. So they're down on this planet for security reasons because there's been attacks and people needed supplies and help, and the building that they're in gets attacked by this terrorist group, and Picard wants to beam them away immediately, but Dr. Crusher refuses and says, no, I need to help these people, which was a great moment for her as a doctor.
Yeah, takes me back to Bones, because I think Bones was the same way, and I think that's the hierarchy in the pecking order of leadership in Starfleet. Doctor's number one. I mean, the captain answers the doctor. If the doctor says, hey, you're not going anywhere, they gotta listen to the doctor.
Yeah, and Picard says to her, oh, well, by doing this, you're endangering Data and Worf, which that's what I was thinking too, but then she responds with, well, they don't have to stay here, and I'm like, oh, that's good. And Picard last second chooses not to beam them back. Obviously, he didn't want to leave Beverly there alone, so he doesn't beam any of them back, and Beverly gets kidnapped.
Yeah, there was a great moment too where it's like, I think even Worf was like, the captain's gonna want to beam you aboard. It's like, yeah, I know what he. I think like, oh, Picard's hailing us. Like, oh, I know what he wants. It's like, no, like she already. Then it cuts to Picard. It's like, beam up here right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when he's like mulling over the decision of what to do, Riker's like, I don't want to meet her on the bridge or meet her at the transporter if they beam them back.
Like those little writing moments are so great.
Yeah, and she is kidnapped by this multi-dimensional transport that this species has been able to develop, and that's how they're able to pull off these attacks. And we learn later on that doing this was invented a long time ago, but they stopped because it literally kills you. Like, it sounded almost like cancer, like it alters the cells of your body. I thought that was a very interesting premise. It's something I've wondered about before. I mean, hell, even in the last episode with the guy breaking out of the transport, I thought about like, could there be something like a transport, but that's multidimensional? And we actually got it here very ahead of their time, I feel like, with that.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that like doing all that is worth like rebelling against their government or wanting to, because 70 years ago they wanted to, subcede, is that the word? Like separate? And
yeah, they were declining their independence. Yeah, secede, yeah.
Secede, yeah. And they're like, no. And like, the fact that it was so bad in their minds that they're like, okay, fine, we're going to use this transporter thing, and it's worth, like, slowly dying. Like, kids are slowly dying. It's like, Jesus, how bad was it?
Yeah, and, it's interesting because every civil war ever, that's kind of the story, right? Like a certain group is like, we're going to secede, and the main group is like, no. I mean, it happened here in America. Not only with the American Revolution, but then the American Civil War was the South. We're going to secede. No. And then you go to war. So there's never been a situation that I know of in history where someone's like, we're going to secede. Okay. Maybe that's happened.
Maybe it has. There's just not a lot of news about it.
Yeah, true.
All right, cool. See ya.
But yeah, that's the story. And let's get into the kind of sympathetic on both sides that I think the show did quite well. Because you have Finn, who obviously is the leader of this terrorist group, but he's a charming guy. Right away, I was like, I hope Dr. Crusher doesn't get Stockholm Syndrome and, falls in love with him or something. She doesn't, but she does feel sympathy for him by the end. And, his reasons that he lays out, one could say are valid reasonings, but not for what he's doing. And that's always the argument in these situations is, yes, you're right that the situation isn't good, but then they tell stories about them, blowing up a busload of children, or he tries to blow up the Enterprise, and when Beverly tells him, well, my son's on there, his response is, oh, I'm sorry. But like, he's moving forward blowing it up because in his mind, he believes that everything he's doing is justified if it means they win at the end.
Yeah, it's like, it's just horrible. And it's like, he was so well written and well performed where I'm like, I like this guy. And then he would have that switch where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to blow up, or they'd remind you, oh yeah, he blew up that bus. It's like, oh, well, the bus was accidental. It's supposed to be a police carrier. Like, is that any different? Like, you're still causing terrorism, but he thinks he's doing it for the right reasons. Or maybe it's because it's been 70 years of this fucking war where it's like, we got to start, ramping it up to get this done. Like I don't know what else. We're dying. It's like, they got to take us seriously eventually here.
Yeah, like they're getting more and more desperate, and they're not the ones with the, what do you call it, infrastructure. They're not the ones with the government and everything behind them. So the more and more desperate they get, they're not like this planet that has kind of control of everything. But even let's jump to the other side, because then we have Davos, who plays this cop character and is on the side of the government. Riker is the one who spends most of the episode with her, and she tells the story about the school bus, and she tells the stories that she's heard and why she's so brutal in the way that she is. And it kind of is a sobering reminder after spending all that time letting Finn be charismatic and convince you that they're actually in the right. Like, oh, they're doing all this messed up stuff, and it isn't justified because of the situation. So I'm glad that the show doesn't really take a side. It kind of just shows you both sides and lets you think what you want. And I think that's the best thing any media can do. Because as soon as the media, whatever you're watching or playing or listening to, whatever it is, once that takes the side, then it becomes, oh, do I agree with this or not? But like, this episode just let you decide what to think of it.
Yeah, because sometimes definitely media
today,
yeah, can definitely bad talk down to you. But I think this is like a good reminder of what TV can do, where it's like it's an alien group, alien race, like, so us as human beings on Earth with our own problems in the world, we can look at it without let's say there's someone racist watching this or a preconceived notion, oh, I don't like people in that country or this country. They can look at this like just clean slate, have an opinion about it, and maybe like afterwards when someone points it out to them, like, oh, this is just like this and this, and like maybe they sided with like a different, like, the one that they're like bigoted against, like, oh shit, like maybe I'm just an asshole or something. Because it just like, this is the reality. It's because, especially with the news today, it's like one side or the other, depending on what station you're watching. And like, I feel like Star Trek is the best news source, where it's like, here's the situation, here's why this side's doing that, that's why this side is doing that. What do you think? Like, we're not telling you what's right or wrong here. Like, both are good, both are bad. Like, especially back to Davos, like, oh, it's so horrible, and it's like, and then she'll also be like, they're animals, like the only good one's like a dead one or something. Or I forget what she said, but it's like, geez, you know what I mean? Bad on both sides here.
Yeah, because she's like, we're not dealing with people here; they're animals, But then when she tells the stories of why she's like this, it's kind of like a cop who's been on the force for a long time and has seen a lot. And you're like, man, why is that guy such a dick? But then he tells you about what he's seen,
Right.
And yeah, I thought it was done well. And that was Carrie Keane that plays Davos, and she did a good job. I think Richard Cox was probably the the highlight of the episode for me,
Mm-hmm.
but she was good as well. And you just said something. Yeah, I wanted to address this is a little bit. We've had some comments recently talking about because of the fact that we really enjoy the character stuff. And while we like sci-fi, that's not our main attraction to Star Trek. That's not why we fell in love with Star Trek. And some people who are really into that stuff, which is fine, by the way, have said like, well, I don't understand. Or, if you really love character drama stuff, they're like, why is it Star Trek that you love then? Like, you could just watch any other Earth-based drama about characters, which true, there are other Earth-based dramas that I do love. But the reason it's Star Trek is exactly what you just pointed out. Because if it was an Earth-based series, well, now it has to be Europe, or it has to be the Middle East, or it has to be America. It has to be somewhere real. And you can change up the details, like that new Civil War movie that just came out, but they made the two sides like absolutely ridiculous. That would never happen in real life, like California and Texas like teaming up to try to obscure, real world, politics, so you don't, go into it. But even then, it's still Earth. It's still America.
Right.
Star Trek can do it on a fictional planet with two fictional species. And if you want to relate it to something that's happening in the real world, that's up to you to do. But this story isn't bound by that. And that's everything in Star Trek. Like the bonding, for example. It starts off with a character being killed on an alien planet that is supposed to be deserted, right? And then we come back and deal with the fallout of that. Yes, that's very similar to people dying in whether it's action in the war or a cop or whatever in real life. But that's not it, because we get to be in this fictional scenario. How does a Klingon deal with that? Something that doesn't exist. So that's why, at least speaking for myself, I don't know if you see it the same way, but like that's why I love Star Trek specifically. Same reason I love, elevated horror movies and horror movies that are really good. Taking something real and making it fictional horror, So I hope there's others out there, I would hope in our audience, that get that and understand. But I also understand sometimes people just love lasers and space and ships, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But
yeah, just like it's a whole new medium of storytelling that isn't limited to the real world. And like, yes, use real life stuff in there and real life themes of humanity and all of that. But it's like, it's like the Star Trek world is huge, man. Like it's every week there's a new species, every week there's a new planet, and it's like you can use these new planets and new species to not recycle, but like tell the story you want to tell without being like stupid. This is bad.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
that's why I love it, because it respects its audience. That's why I love Star Trek. It respects its audience. And like, sure, sci-fi is fun. I love spaceships. I love lasers. But it's like, strip all that away. What's there? Just good writing, good storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think someone else's perspective could be also like, yeah, we wouldn't care about any of the sci-fi stuff if we didn't love the characters, but because we do, that's why we enjoy the sci-fi stuff. I think it's the same exact thing for us, but just a little bit different on the stuff that we're looking for. So this episode, I think, was a great example of that, because I would not at all be interested. I mean, if you've watched a channel for anything outside of Star Trek, the 5% of you, you know that I don't typically like, war movies or, period pieces, right? Like that's not usually my jam. There are ones that I love. Same thing here. I would not, off the top, preconceived notion, think that I would be interested in a story about a Civil War conflict where, people from America have to go in and, that's just not my thing. Oh, but wait, it's Star Trek with two fictional species on a fictional planet? I'm in, So it's like it gives you that excuse, I feel like, to negate your prior feelings and just let it be a Star Trek story, which I really enjoyed.
I guess the ending was neat. Just seeing Davos just kill Finn, and you're like, oh shit. And then that great moment where like the kid, it's like, don't do it. It's like, and like he chooses not to. It's like all it takes is like one step, one person putting their gun down, and this can start a whole chain reaction of change in this place.
Yeah, and it was a nice way to end the story. And I'm really, really glad that it wasn't, oh, they fixed the war. You know what I mean? They didn't solve really anything, almost like Private Little War. They didn't really solve anything. It was just this one situation with these two characters. And Davos even says, oh, I stopped him so that he won't be a murderer, but now he'll be a martyr. And it's like, oof, but that little boy, changed his mind, and they give you that nugget of hope. Kind of similar to The Defector, where the guy, takes his own life at the end, but leaves that note for his family that maybe one day there's that hope that there'll be a peace. So it's good at like dark ending, but leave that little nugget.
Yes. I love like the not optimistic, but like a realistic reality. Like I'm thinking of other possible sci-fi endings where like whole war is solved. They have like the ending of like I don't know, the Phantom Menace or something, or Return of the Jedi. Oh,
Yeah,
they're all dancing. It's like no, it's like just that little bit, that small glimmer of hope that things can change. And I don't want to know what happens. I want the crew to leave, and hopefully they figure it out. But I don't want to know.
One episode of TOS, this whole episode reminded me of A Taste of Armageddon, where they did the simulated war. But in that episode, and I get it, a different time, but in that episode, it was like at the end, they were just like, oh, we'll just do this. And the species like, oh, okay. And it just like fixes their war. Like, I'm glad that didn't happen here. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Let's talk about Dr. Crusher a little bit, because obviously, if you're new here, it's my favorite character. We both really, really enjoy her. And thought the performance, as usual, excellent. It's not what I would have thought her first focus episode would be, because it really has nothing to do with her specifically, but she did great with what she was given, I thought.
Yeah, she was like just a POV character because the star of the episode is Finn. She's there through our eyes.
Good point.
Or
Yeah.
we're there through her eyes to this guy's whole reasoning, and Riker is there for Davos's POV. Yeah, I liked her. And we talked about the beginning stuff where she's like, I'm gonna save these people. Fuck off, Picard. Then once she gets captured, I like how she goes just like no fear, not scared, just probably in her training. Like if you ever get subdued by someone, just don't talk without your lawyer. Don't talk without your Starfleet lawyer.
That leads later on to a really good conversation between Crusher and Picard once Picard gets arrested. And we can't skip over when they are on the Enterprise and Picard throws a punch in this episode.
Yeah, don't they like, beam them up now? And like Finn's up there and just bam, right hook.
Yeah, punches them, but then eventually they're able to take over. And once he's arrested, him and Crusher start arguing because he's going down there still completely on this on the side of the government.
Mm-hmm.
And Crusher starts explaining to him why he has reasons, and he's like, "You're talking about someone who's going to kill your son." And it's like that really puts it into perspective.
That's right. That's right. It does such a good job of like how effective people can be in their conversations. Like this is a random sidebar conversation, but I'd love the two recent God of War games. The first one, 2018, like through all the in-game dialogue, or like you're just walking through and some guy's talking to you. It just talks about Odin being like the worst of the worst. Like he's just horrible. Odin is absolutely terrible. And then we meet him in 2018 as a character, and you're getting to know him, and you're like, oh, this guy's kind of charming. When the entire previous game was just building him up as a monster, and he's so good at like being like sly and manipulative. Like, oh, I kind of like this guy. It kind of reminded me of that.
I just, for some reason, wouldn't think about going back to this one as one of my favorites. We'll see how I feel at the end of the season, but
it was just a downer.
Yeah,
I love downers, but it didn't make me cry. It didn't make me cry.
Was it? Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, was it because like it was a really interesting story, but not necessarily centered on our characters, or was it just a little bit too like grounded and realistic, where it's like, oh, let's elevate it let's make it a little bit more sci-fi so I can not think about it. But I'm not sure the reasoning. But what I will say is that for a story that if you would have told me what it was, it would have sounded like I'd have no interest in it. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Alex and Josh, fill the target audience.
Riker and Davos have been like interviewing people all day, and they bring in the last one, and like 2 questions in, say, all right, this is enough.
Yeah.
Go back there and tell them we want to talk. All right, goodbye.
Just completely takes over what she was doing. Yeah.
But we didn't see all the other interviews, so in our minds or in our thoughts and what we've seen, like that was like the first interview. And get out of here.
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact. His character's full name is Chiral Finn, and there's a character from Andor named Cyril. Probably not worth writing down, but.
Do not get Stockholm Syndrome, whatever you do.